Now, as a professional bowler, Anthony, you run into a lot of different tournament environments and a lot of different lane distances and really challenges when it comes to figuring out what to do on the lanes. So we got you lined up on multiple patterns, a short, a medium, and a long. Let's talk briefly about what your system is for lining up. What are you looking at when you stand on the approach? What's your target look like, and what are you trying to do in executing to that target?
And just depending on what we're bowling on, starting with the short pattern. Generally speaking, for me on the short patterns, I use the urethane bowling balls. They're most predictable, and they're the smoothest rolling. Okay. Outside part of the lane, yep, on almost every short pattern. It's where it's meant to be played.
So a lot of friction on the short patterns, so you need to get the angles over to the right side of the lane. Even for a high ball speed and high rev rate player, getting yourself out to the right side is going to be where you find yourself playing most of the time. Now, always targeting at the arrows, at the dots. What are you really looking at when you're targeting?
I mean, generally it's starting at the arrows. You know, I kind of, when I get up and I get set on the lane, I kind of draw an imaginary line from the pocket back to where I want my break point to be, back to the arrows, and just try to execute. Okay,
great. So you kind of visualize what ball path you're looking for, draw that back through a target, and then you're executing through that target. Okay, great. So the medium patterns now. The distances let you play a lot of multiple angles. On the medium pattern that you lined up on today, where were you looking at and what led you to get there?
On the medium pattern ball on today, I was using a mid-range, my benchmark ball, okay, and just kind of playing the middle part of the lane at the arrows, about fourth arrow. Mm-hmm. The break point not too far from the pocket because it is, with it being a little longer than the short pattern, angles need to be a lot closer.
So lets you play the middle of the lane. In the middle lane for you, fourth arrow. Some players with higher ball speeds and rev rates may not make it to fourth arrow, but I see how that angle for you with that ball speed and rev rate still gets you to the pocket successfully. So now long patterns. A lot of oil usually, longer distance for sure. What are you going to do on long patterns? How are you lining up, and how's that going to affect where you play?
Generally on the long patterns, I try to be as straight as possible, but straight as possible and also inside the track, right around the second arrow. Different surfaces if I have to, and if the pattern allows me, get inside into fifth arrow to start and play the fallback.
Okay. So the longer distance patterns don't give you as much friction in the back of the lane. The ball doesn't hook as much. So what you have to do is, it sounds like you're moving your feet to the inside part of the lane. Even though the track is the second arrow like you mentioned, you're still going to get your targeting more toward probably closer to third arrow maybe down the lane for a break point area, and that's going to, as you play, like you said, fifth arrow, maybe as you're launching or the direction you're targeting, that's going to cause you, as the lane transitions or as it moves, to maybe even move further left. And you said fallback. Now, fallback being the ball actually, instead of hooking so hard from right to left, it's actually going to kind of stay straight on line or just barely move as it goes toward the 1-3.
Just barely move as it goes to the 1-3. Yeah. Just enough to try to get the corners out and try to keep yourself out of trouble. That way your misses way right aren't, you know, you're not split, and if anything, they're going to be spares. You know, a couple pin spares you got to shoot at.
Yeah. So you want the makeable spares. You're not looking for designer splits when it comes to actually the results whenever you're in that part of the lane. So talking about lane patterns, short distances, long distances, something in the middle, whatever the lane guides you to, you need to make sure that your feet, your eyes, your target are all in that part of the lane that gets you successfully and comfortably to the pocket each time. Hopefully leaves you some makeable spares. So when we talk about changing parts of the lane, or at least playing different parts of the lane for lane patterns, keep in mind that whether you're a two-handed approach player or traditional one-handed, you're still going to play those main parts of the lane, the outside, the track, or the inside, and that's going to help you tackle those lane conditions and create high scores on any environment that you run into.